Hey gang, you know who it is. So today on Threefold, I'm going to be introducing you to our next segment. So we finished the first segment yesterday, which was entitled "And So It Begins." So we finished the first segment. We finished with section 3, and today is going to start our second segment. The second segment is entitled "The Travelers." So this will also begin section 4, which is called Hugo. So we'll start with part 1 of section 4 and dive right in. Because they still had daylight, they continued toward Yavera after they finished their meal. Hugo had a lot on his mind. Mateo led him and Junio to his younger brother Guinness, an in-your-face kind of guy. Guinness and Mateo shared dark brown eyes and rugged appearances, but Guinness had a clean-shaven face. He and Junio almost shared the same height, but Guinness lost out by a few inches. His short, dark brown hair had a slight curl to it. Compared to him, Guinness had a thick build, but he had less of one than Junio. When he arrived, Guinness annoyed him with the way he refused to listen and reason. Regardless of how Guinness acted, Hugo had to talk some sense into him and Junio. They had been on the verge of killing each other, so Hugo had to get involved and smooth out the situation, whether Mateo liked it or not. Junio appeared to dislike him enough for two people. Hugo felt he had to show Guinness he was welcome because they would be traveling together after everything was said and done. He didn't quite believe Junio disliked him that much. Junio probably wasn't a fan of his arrogance, and Hugo was sure the fact Junio didn't trust Guinness played a major part in his behavior toward him. At the end of the day, Guinness brought answers, but he also brought more questions. Jackson, Akura, and Mateo were working together to some end. They brought Junio, Guinness, and himself together because the three of them somehow fit into their plan. Hugo, Junio, and Guinness had no idea for what reason, but they learned their parents were involved too. The most important information Guinness had to offer, which Jackson had him deliver, involved the crests each of them had. Only 3 crests existed and belonged to 3 families, and the families passed them down through the years. This held true for Guinness and himself, but Junio said he received his from a family friend. The first thought that popped into Hugo's head was Yoshino might not be his biological mother. Hugo guessed this had something to do with the woman who gave Junio his crest. Hugo didn't want to believe it for Junio's sake, but if Guinness was right, neither he nor Junio could ignore it. As they traveled toward Yavera, what lay heavily on Hugo's mind was Jackson's actions in Evergard. Jackson had been behind the attack, and one of the things that worried Hugo was Jackson's use of ice fire. Generating ice fire was a rare and amazing feat, but people and scholars associated it with the negative, the insane. Ice fire was evidence. It proved Jackson had changed, but it didn't necessarily mean he killed Lako. Jackson had no problem attacking Guinness with it. Would he have killed him? No, he's part of the plan. He did kill him. A small voice in the back of his head told him about Lako, but he wouldn't listen to it. Jackson told him he hadn't done it, told him he had to protect him. He would have to ask Jackson again and get him to explain everything. Hugo's conversation with Guinness made him give Junio's actions a second thought. Junio had killed before. Whether Shinjiro or someone from his past, Junio had taken a life. He defended Junio when Guinness questioned it, but he had no basis for it. He believed Junio worked for the Lunastrian government, but he couldn't know if Junio had ever murdered an innocent person. For this reason, Guinness called him out on it. He believed he had no reason to doubt Junio, but Jackson was a different story. He would only see Jackson again if the three of them stayed together. However, he viewed Junio and Guinness didn't matter. He wouldn't understand any of this and try not to doubt Jackson until they reached and received answers in Lunaria. Fortunately, you think good of Junio, the small voice said. Hugo told that voice to shut it. How could he think good of Junio and not his own brother? The three of them traveled into the night, mostly in silence. When they settled down to camp, Hugo lay down and fiddled with his crest. He thought about its purpose before he drifted off to sleep. He could understand it being for protection, explained why the warden's thunder had been less lethal, but the information about being keys to positions made little sense. Hugo remembered his dad taking many trips to his alma mater and many times around the world. He'd even leave on those trips when they traveled to Gatera to visit his mom's family. Was it sad he couldn't remember what his dad did? Was his dad within Alvarez University? If he wasn't with Jackson, he could be there. Hugo wished he could talk to his dad. His dad could explain the situation. His dad could reach Jackson as he always did. But why hadn't his dad done this already? It was a good question for which he had no answer. He let himself fall asleep. All right, guys, that was a short part. It's Friday, so I'm going to let you guys know on that. And I hope you've been enjoying this. I hope you continue watching and listening to my video if you're not watching them. We're going to do part 2 tomorrow, maybe part 2 and 3. We'll see. Thanks again, and have a good night.